Okay, so if you've ever felt like you're just, stuck on that weight loss merry-go-round, trying all the diets, hearing about the latest
Oh,
things.
yeah, the constant search.
Exactly. And right now, there's so much talk about medications like Semaglutide, you probably know the brand names, Ozempic, Wegovy.
The GLP-1s.
Right. They basically mimic a hormone, tell your brain you're full, less appetite, fewer cravings. Simple, right? But maybe not so simple.
Well, that's just the surface level, isn't
It
it?
really is. So today we're doing a deep dive. And it's not just about the drug itself, it's more about a whole philosophy around it. We've been looking into the work of Dan Hollis,
Mm,
who has this really different take on what actually makes weight loss stick and, where something like semaglutide fits in.
exactly. And look, this isn't about judging anyone's past attempts or saying this is some magic bullet. Not at all.
No.
It's more about understanding the interaction between our bodies, our minds, and food, especially when you introduce a tool this powerful.
Mm.
So we're going to unpack how Hollis reframes, well, pretty much everything. Emotional eating, setbacks, what failure even means. It's quite a shift.
Yeah, it really is. So our mission here is to get why Dan Hollis keeps saying semaglutide isn't the solution, but it's the signal.
The signal.
And how understanding that difference, that specific framing, might actually be the key to lasting change. So yeah, get ready to maybe rethink some things about food and your body.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's unpack that first big idea. Hollis points out that, a lot of programs basically just hand you a syringe and wish you luck.
Right. Here's the drug. Good luck.
But he says his approach is different. He says he hands you a map. What does that even mean? That semaglutide as a signal, not the solution.
Well, it's interesting because he argues that if you don't have that map, that structure and support, that the semaglutide can actually make things more confusing, even as it dampens your appetite.
How so? More confusing.
Yeah, because it creates what he calls this pause button or a reset. It's like the background noise of cravings and food thoughts suddenly gets quiet, which is a huge opportunity, right? A chance to build new habits, new systems, while that noise is low. But if you don't know what to build in that quiet,
You're just quiet and lost.
exactly. The drug creates the opening, but it doesn't tell you what to do with it. That's where the map comes in.
And Hollis actually talked about his own experience starting it. He called it the quiet. Said he literally didn't realize how much mental space food occupied until, poof, it was gone.
Yeah, he described that as unsettling and strangely beautiful.
Unsettling. Interesting.
Because suddenly you're confronted with
Mhm.
what else is there. But also beautiful because that quiet is where you can finally start to untangle true physical hunger from what he calls signal confusion.
Signal confusion, like your body's sending a signal, but you're reading it as must eat now.
Precisely. Fatigue, boredom, stress.
Mm.
They all send signals. We often just default to interpreting them as hunger. Semaglutide quiets the hunger signal enough that you might actually hear the real signal underneath.
Okay, so it's not a shortcut. It's an opportunity for clarity. But you have to actively use that quiet space.
You absolutely have to use it. It doesn't happen automatically.
Which brings up that other big question people have, is this cheating thing?
Yes, the cheating question comes up all the time.
How does Hollis tackle that one? Because
Yeah.
it's a strong accusation.
He has a really direct answer. He
Okay.
basically says, look, if your body's biochemistry, your hormones, are essentially rigged against you, making weight loss incredibly difficult,
Yeah.
then using a scientifically developed tool to help unrig it isn't cheating. It's adapting. It's using the tools available.
Okay.
In fact, he flips it. He suggests the real cheat, maybe, was pretending that sheer willpower was ever enough for people facing significant biological hurdles.
Wow. Okay. That really does reframe it. Puts the focus on biology, not just willpower.
Exactly. It moves away from shame and towards understanding the biological reality for many people.
Okay, so moving from the biology, let's get into what Hollis calls the unseen hunger, emotional hunger.
Yeah. This is huge in his framework.
He says it often sounds like a craving, but he describes it as actually a question, a need asking to be seen. What kind of question? What need?
Well, think about it. How often do we reach for food when we're not physically hungry?
All the time. Tired, stressed, bored, lonely.
Exactly. Hollis argues that what we think is hunger is often one of those things. Fatigue, loneliness, feeling overwhelmed, needing comfort.
So the question is really, what do I actually need right now? And the need is comfort or connection or rest, not necessarily calories.
Precisely. That urge for the pantry might really be an urge for connection or a break or just some clarity. The
Yeah.
food becomes a stand-in, a coping mechanism.
And he says, this is fascinating. When that coping mechanism, that emotional scaffolding, as he calls it, is suddenly less appealing because of the medication, you don't just feel physically lighter, you feel kind of exposed, vulnerable almost.
Yes. Because the thing you used to lean on isn't holding you up in the same way. And what's key is how Hollis approaches this. He doesn't shame it. He frames it as wisdom misdirected.
Wisdom misdirected. I like that. So the urge is telling you something important. You just weren't interpreting the message correctly.
Exactly. Your body or mind is wisely signaling a need. The misdirection comes in trying to meet that need with food when it actually requires something else entirely.
So the semaglutide, it doesn't fix the emotional hunger then.
Not at all. This is critical. It doesn't solve the why behind the emotional eating. It just turns down the volume on the biological noise, the cravings, the appetite, so you can finally hear the emotional signal clearly.
It creates, as he says, the silence that lets you find the real issue.
Beautifully put, yes. It removes the urgent physical drive, giving you space to ask, okay, what's really going on here? What am I truly feeling or needing?
Which means the real work, the deep work Hollis talks about.
Right.
It's way beyond just tracking macros or following a meal plan.
Oh, absolutely. It requires empathy for yourself, first off. Then real awareness, paying attention to those moments, and then the courage to ask that question behind the craving. What is this really about?
And then figuring out how to meet that need differently.
Exactly. Finding non-food ways to cope, to connect, to comfort yourself, that's building a new emotional framework.
Okay,
Sure.
so that leads directly into the next big question. Why do people regain weight? Even if they've had success, maybe even with medication like semaglutide, people relapse.
Yeah, the relapse issue. It's heartbreaking for people.
Hollis has a specific take. He says it's often not because the drug suddenly stopped working. It's because, say it again.
Because no one helped them rebuild the emotional framework that food used to support.
Right, that framework. So food wasn't just food.
Never just food for many people. It was comfort. It was a way to manage stress, maybe even a form of control or part of their social life, their identity.
And when that's gone, or lessened, it's a real loss. He says it can feel like losing a friend.
It really can, which highlights why just stopping the medication without a plan is so risky. You need what he calls a clear off-ramp strategy.
An off-ramp. What does that involve?
It means having those new coping mechanisms firmly in place. Understand your triggers, having systems for managing stress, emotions, social situations without relying on the old food patterns. Because if you don't have that off-ramp built,
Then what happens when the medication stops? Or the dose lowers?
he says the biology takes over. The appetite comes back, maybe even stronger for a bit. The old triggers feel louder, and before you know it, the weight starts creeping back on because the underlying framework wasn't rebuilt. Preparation for after is crucial.
Okay. And what about during the process? People often see really fast weight loss initially, right? And then it stalls, that plateau.
The plateau, very common.
Hollis explains this simply as the body adapts, which makes sense. And he also notes that really rapid loss can sometimes trigger metabolic slowdowns.
Right, your body tries to conserve energy. It's a survival mechanism.
And his philosophy here is so important, I think. He says, you're not here to win the race, you're here to finish it.
I love that line. It shifts the focus entirely. It's not about dropping weight as fast as possible. It's about sustainable, long-term change. Endurance.
So how does that translate into day-to-day approach? He's not big on super rigid rules, is he?
No, he talks about pattern mastery over perfection. Forget rigid cheat days or obsessive clean eating. That sets up a pass-fail mentality.
Which can lead to guilt and spirals.
Exactly. He actually says if your system, your mindset, can't handle having a slice of cake at a birthday party without you feeling like you failed and going off the rails,
Yeah.
then we haven't taught it flexibility. We've taught it fear. The goal is resilience, being able to navigate real life, not live in a bubble.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Building flexibility, not fear. So the ultimate question then, how do you keep the weight off? For good.
This is where it gets really deep. Hollis says it happens by becoming the kind of person who doesn't need weight loss as a project anymore.
Wow. Becoming that person. So it's identity work.
It's absolutely identity work, he argues. Not just dieting. It's about fundamentally shifting how you see yourself, how you cope, how you live.
And success isn't just the number on the scale.
Not primarily, no. He defines success by how many coping mechanisms we've replaced with real tools. the weight loss itself. He calls it a side effect of clarity.
The side effect of clarity. I like that. So it's not about white-knuckling it with discipline.
No, discipline runs out. He says you hold on to it with alignment, aligning your choices, your habits, your thoughts with that new identity, that person who manages life differently now.
And it comes back to connection.
Yes. He says you didn't lose control, you lost connection.
Connection to what?
To your hunger cues, to your purpose, to yourself. Rebuilding those connections is the foundation for lasting change, in his view.
That's a really profound way to look at it. Losing connection, not control.
Changes everything.
Now, a lot of people listening might be thinking, yeah, but I failed so many times before. I've tried everything. That feeling of failure is heavy.
So heavy. Carries a lot of shame.
But Hollis has this amazing flip on that. He literally says, good, that means you've tested what doesn't work.
Huh. Yeah, only he could frame failure as good.
Right. He follows it with, now let's build what does with tools that match your biology, not shame your behavior. So how does he want us to see those past failures?
Not as failures at all, in the shaming sense. He reframes them as messages or moments of feedback, just data points.
Data points.
Information about what didn't work for you in that context. Relapsing isn't some moral failing or betrayal of yourself. He says it's often just the brain asking for the old familiar rhythm, the old coping strategy.
So it's information you can use to adjust the map you're building.
Precisely. It's diagnostic, not damning.
And this ties into another point he makes. It's so easy to blame yourself when something like semaglutide doesn't lead to permanent change. But where does he place the focus?
This is so important, he says. Most people aren't failing semaglutide. They're failing to prepare for what comes after it.
So it shifts the focus from individual failure to maybe a lack of the right support system or the right preparation.
Exactly. It's about the system of support, the map, the off-ramp strategy, not just the person's willpower or the drug itself. He believes setbacks are almost inevitable.
But how you handle them is key.
Yes. He says setbacks are sacred if you're willing to look at them with curiosity instead of judgment.
Curiosity, not judgment. That's hard.
It is hard, but he argues that's where grace comes in. Grace isn't ignoring the stumble. It's responding to it by reaching for a better tool this time, instead of reaching for self-blame, problem-solving, not self-punishment.
So for someone listening, reflecting on their own journey, what kind of questions should they be asking themselves when they hit a bump?
He suggests asking things like, okay, what story am I telling myself about this setback? Is it a, see, I always fail story? Or is it a, okay, what can I learn here story? And then critically, is the story I'm telling myself actually helping me become who I want to be?
That's powerful, connecting the story to the desired identity.
And, his conviction comes from a very personal place. He's open about his own struggles.
Yeah.
He says, I was the guy who couldn't lose weight, who felt broken, who was ashamed to ask for help. I built this so nobody has to go through that alone again. That personal experience fuels his whole approach.
That makes it feel very grounded, not just theoretical.
Absolutely.
And looking back now, what advice would he give his younger self, the one who felt broken?
It's interesting. He said the real turning point for him, the moment he felt genuine hope, wasn't when he saw a certain number on the scale.
No. When was it?
It was when I went to bed and didn't feel like I had to start over the next day. That feeling of being off the roller coaster.
Consistency, not just results.
Yes. And the advice to his past self. Slow down.
Slow down in weight loss.
Yeah, slow down. This isn't punishment. It's repair. Trust the process. But more importantly, stay in relationship with yourself while you do it. Don't disconnect.
Still in relationship with yourself. That feels like the core message threading through all of this.
I think it really is.
So wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you listening right now? It seems clear from Dan Hollis's perspective that, yeah, semaglutide is a potent tool, a real biological intervention.
Definitely powerful. A pause button, like he says.
But its real value, the deeper value, isn't just the appetite suppression. It's the opportunity that quiet space creates. The actual work, the stuff that leads to lasting change, seems to be in understanding and dealing with that emotional hunger, really preparing for life after or with less medication, that off-ramp and ultimately transforming your identity.
Yeah, becoming someone who doesn't define themselves by the struggle with weight anymore.
Right. And it's a huge shift in perspective, isn't it? Seeing failure as data, as feedback.
Totally. Moving from fear to flexibility. Defining success by your internal toolkit, your clarity, not just the scale.
It's about building that alignment, finding those healthier coping tools, not just gritting your teeth with discipline.
Alignment, connection.
Yeah.
Those seem to be the key words.
So here's the final thought to leave you with based on all this. If lasting change, real transformation, isn't just about the pounds you lose, but about who you become in the process, and about rebuilding those connections to your body's real signals, maybe to a deeper sense of purpose, and definitely to yourself, then what's maybe one small thing, just one tiny step you could take today, maybe even right now, to start fostering that deeper, more connected relationship with your own body and mind?